Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Straight to the Points. We're here already in episode 3, and we're excited to bring you another great episode by Kestrel Insights. So today we have as always, my man Lucas Shore, CEO and founder of Kestrel Insights, and we're also joined by Andrew Ryder, who's the manager of enterprise sales engineering at Samsara. So we're going to talk a little bit about the partnership that Kestrel and Samsara have, but first, let's get to know you, Andrew. Maybe a little bit about your background and your story.
Sure. So I've been at Samsara for about 6 years now. I spent the first four and a half of those years as an individual contributor, as an SE, a sales engineer on the strategic enterprise team, and had a chance to work with some of the largest customers that we've brought on board. Some very complex customers and industries. I moved into leadership about a year or so ago, about a year and a quarter, and now I'm responsible for managing the team that I was originally a team member of. So that's a bit about me.
Very good. And as you guys know, Lucas, but anything to add there, Lucas?
Yeah, no, nothing to add. CEO, founder over here at Kestrel Insights. We're about all things geofencing. And so a partnership with Samsara is pretty much a no-brainer. And yeah, we've gotten to know Andrew over our time there. And a lot of cool stuff we do with those guys. And I'm really excited to talk today just about how we work with, teams like Andrews and where they bring us in and how we really kind of empower each other. So it's super symbiotic, honestly. I love it. And so Samsara is a super cool platform, and we love being a part of that ecosystem.
Well, tell me a little bit, like just a high level overview before we get into it. What is your role as a value add integration with Samsara?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So Samsara has their marketplace where teams who can build on their open APIs bring additional value to like the Samsara users and all that. And so it was a no brainer for us on the geofencing side. That's all we do. That's all we kind of live and play in. And so geofences feed so many awesome features and products in the Samsara world. And so in there, teams can use circular geofences, they can hand draw polygons. And what we basically brought was just another option to the menu of what about an automated solution that brings in polygons for different use cases, allow teams to scale, especially on Andrew's side for the enterprise teams that he's working with. They've often got thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of locations. So giving them an access to like a database like ours is awesome. So our biggest thing is in the Samsara space is to bring automation to how polygon geofences are created and accessed and things like that. So a lot of cool stuff, but that's kind of where we focus on with anyone on Samsara and where they bring us in.
Andrew, you ever drawn a polygon geofence?
I have. It's not really something you want to do at scale, like
Especially when
Lucas,
Lucas is mentioning 100,000 possible locations, right?
and he's not kidding. The some of these are some of the largest fleets in the world, and they're extremely complex. And you start to think of all of the data that comes from these other systems they have. In some cases, geofences that only need to be created and used temporarily. But the power of the reporting that you get as a result of that is pretty incredible. It's fairly easy to just programmatically create a radius geofence around a latitude longitude point. A lot of systems do that, and it's sort of like what we would do out of the box today. But drawing the polygon gives you significantly better data. So when you start to think of utilization or dormancy or inventory or time on site, all of that data is significantly more useful if it's an accurate geofence, and that's where a partner like Kestrel comes in extremely handy. Is they're able to take that load off of the customer and enable them to have super accurate, detailed geofences at all times.
Very good. Well, what I love about Samsara is that you didn't go out like around 10 years ago in the technology landscape. You would have this mindset where people wanted to be all things to everyone. And
Mm.
I think what's genius is this marketplace that you guys have put together. So tell me a little bit about that marketplace and kind of what it's about and why you guys do that.
Sure. Uh, so you hit on something interesting there, which is nobody can be everything for everybody. Samsara is a connected operations platform, And we do help customers consolidate technology. So you might put vehicle and trailer telematics and AI safety and ELD all in the same platform, but it certainly doesn't stop there. And especially when we start to talk about the enterprise space, the average enterprise customer for Samsara has 8 integrations. That's the average.
Wow.
So some have much more. And we're never going to have everything that a company uses in the ecosystem. We don't plan to get into payroll or significant planning, staff planning, and scheduling. And so customers are always going to have a myriad of different applications in the ecosystem. And our goal is to be the most extensible platform in the market. We want to allow consolidation where it makes sense. And if you want to use a product that Samsara has that's in our wheelhouse, great. But if somebody else does that better, our preference is to offer a turnkey integration to that. And when I say turnkey, what I mean is we want this to be something the customer just selects, clicks, and then it's live and active. We want to make that process of getting that turned on as easy as possible. So you shouldn't have to have an IT team. You shouldn't have to bring in a systems integrator to build these because our partners in Samsara have already done that. So the Samsara marketplace is really it's like a catalog of 300 and counting turnkey integrations for our customers to go and select the best in breed providers that are going to integrate well with Samsara. And tons of benefits to that. But I think one of the largest benefits for a Kestrel and other partners is that for our customers, they can see that this partner already has an established relationship with Samsara. So if they're going to be using Samsara, it's a no brainer to use one of these partners that's in the marketplace. And we put a lot of effort into to onboarding those partners and vetting those partners. And so just because there's 300, it doesn't mean that they're not great. Like they're 300 of some of the top players in the industry. And that's the goal, is just to make sure that we give a very fast time to value, and that our customers, when they come to us and they say, hey, we also need help with this geofencing, for example, we can go into the marketplace and we can point them towards someone who is best in class, that they're going to have an excellent experience with.
I feel like your comment on the vetting is so important too, that Samsara users probably don't get insights to, of like, hey, you can't just show up on the marketplace tomorrow. Like they beat you up, as they should. It's like, hey, if you're gonna stand proud with us, we're gonna bring you up to our level, which is Samsara top tier platforms. Like they're gonna demand the best out of everyone in there. And so, yeah, it's a process to prove value, prove the integration is smooth. You actually have to even have, if I remember this, it's been over a year, but like test customers on there that have seen it and
Mm-hmm.
like vouched for it. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a top tier marketplace, and it's incredible the breadth of solutions that are on there too. Like you mentioned payroll and other things, to us on the geofencing side. Like it's a wide ranging offering of solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And good thing there's 8 integrations on average, and I can
Yeah.
imagine. I mean, you're just trying to do your job, and you are living in a society. And I mean, even as a personal consumer, I sort of expect things to click, click, and then work together. Click, click, and work together. I think my children don't even realize that APIs exist because to them, it's just how it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting in LTL, like API. You think about APIs and integrations. 10 years ago, some of these LTL carriers had a tough time just getting their API into rating systems. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's an incredible undertaking, and it really shows how you're trying to take care of the whole customer. You're not only thinking about your function in the supply chain. It's a team sport, Lucas. You know that better than anyone. So maybe what attracted you to look at Samsara? Why were they a good fit for your platform?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because the prevalence of APIs and open APIs are everywhere. So really, the places we could integrate is borderline endless. So I think the attractive piece is not only the ability to integrate, but like the openness to integrate and work with integrations and partners and things like that. So like, it's not just from an open APIs perspective where, okay, here's APIs and you can go do it, but it's also from a mindset perspective of, hey, let's understand what these integrations do. Let's get to know Lucas and the team. Let's get to know what they offer. Let's bring them into demos. Let's ping them with questions. Like, that's where it's really cool is you see it from like a culture perspective at Samsara of like, hey, like Andrew said, we're not going to solve every problem for everyone, and let's work with the people that are the best in these spaces, in these niches that bring just collaborative value to the customer. So that's what I love so much is like we're meeting with Samsara AEs and SEs all the time. They're pinging us simple questions to bringing us into demos to being a part of like entire sales processes. So it's a super open and two-way channel, really. And yeah, that's just what we love, because our data is useless by itself. You can't just walk around with a geofence and do something with it. You need it paired with that tracking device, that blue dot on the map. And so being a part of all, like being able to connect ourselves to all those solutions that Andrew talked about, like all the powerful reporting, the workflows, the triggers, like it's just it just adds so much value to what our geofences can even start to touch on. So yeah, that was like a huge draw for Samsara, or for us to Samsara, is like, again, the openness to even be able to do it technically and have the APIs, but then the openness from a culture perspective of, hey, we're here, we want to work with you guys, and we absolutely love that.
I like that you guys meet frequently too. It's not like Samsara is just adding people to the marketplace, as you said, willy nilly and then walking away. Let's talk a little bit about when the integrations happen and when you guys are with a shared customer. Andrew, could you share any stories of like what that value for that customer's meant, what they've said as a benefit of that integration?
Sure. I think so. First of all, we place about as much emphasis on extensibility as we do on innovation. So Samsara is
Hmm,
releasing
that's
about
interesting.
three new features every single week on average. So the clip of innovation is pretty insane.
That's pretty
But we're
big.
adding
Yeah.
3 new integration partners per month on average, and that takes a team of people to do that. It all starts with a business need. So we encounter a customer says, "Hey, can you do this thing?" If we don't do that thing, then now we know there's a gap. And so we're going to ask the customer first, do you have somebody in mind that you'd like us to work with that you use today? And if they don't, then we're going to go to market and we're going to go look for who is the top player or two in that space. And we're going to talk to them and we're going to try and onboard those partners as quickly as possible so we can fill that gap. What that means for our customers is a few things. So aside from what we already talked about, which is it's super helpful for a customer just to be able to stack some Legos to and fill in a gap that we have quickly and
Yeah.
easily with someone they know Samsara has vetted and has a relationship. But two, we arm our internal teams with the information to reach out to Lucas and his team. So when it comes time to have that follow-up conversation with the customer, my SEs and their AEs, they've already met with Lucas and his team. They've talked about what's the customer need? What's the mutual success that we're going to find here? How do we want to approach this as a cohesive team? And customers really appreciate that. We're not just
Yeah.
saying, hey, here's an email for Lucas and his guys. Let us know after you meet with them. We're
100%.
usually coming into that conversation together, and that's much more powerful. And so, even though we might not execute all on the same paper, we're doing the sales cycle and the sales campaign as one team. And that's really important for a customer because they get a lot more done in a single meeting. They don't have to have 2 meetings and then we're all playing telephone. And that's really the motion that we want to take. We want to onboard and vet the best partners in the industry, and then we want to approach our prospects and customers together as one team to solve problems. So it all starts with a business need, and then we identify who can have the greatest business impact, and that ends up being a very successful motion.
Yeah, that's such a good comment of like, we've all been in sales as the buyer. We've been in sales processes where like people show up unprepared, and and you're like, they're like awkwardly trying to ask each other questions like, hey, is that you? Is that me? And it does not come off as, like Andrew said, like a cohesive thing. We were just working with a Samsara user with an engineer on Andrew's team, Roman Crystal, and he's calling me on the cell phone before. He's like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm looking at the reports on. We're brainstorming stuff. We're getting data in there. We're testing it. We're finding what works. We're finding what doesn't. And then we show up with like, hey, this is the solution. This is where Lucas and his team will own it. And this is where, Samsara will assist and all that stuff. So like, Andrew said, it's not show up to get information and then everyone breaks away to then come back with solutions. It's, hey, let's come with solutions, and then the customer kind of has everything they could potentially use right in front of them. So yeah, that's an awesome piece of is, hey, showing up where you show up and you're confident you're a part of the team, not, hey, just getting dumped an email and a lead and good luck. Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
could not emphasize that more.
You guys have definitely identified, I think, one of the biggest pain points in buying technology in general is change management and user adoption.
Yeah.
And particularly in a partner kind of situation, it requires that both people commit to solving that challenge for the customer. Um, and you talk about, whole team approach, coming together, not wasting their time. You want them to see value as soon as possible. I think I've seen LinkedIn posts lately where people are bragging about how fast they onboard customers. And I think that's a cool thing to champion because that's been the biggest problem in buying and using log tech. So, from your perspective, Andrew, you have this marketplace. There's a lot of tools out there. There's this fatigue sometimes that can happen for users and buyers. How do you keep them not feeling overwhelmed?
I think part of that is how we approach this role to begin with. So the SEs are trusted advisors to the customer. It is true that we own everything on the technical pre-sale side, but we're assigned to that customer for the life of the account. And that means that the stakeholders we're building and the relationships that we're building in that account, they become almost more important after the deal is signed. That's when the real work begins, right? So part of what the SEs are expected to do is to understand the customer extremely well, but also the other players in the space, the industry, what would be a good fit. And so we generally try not to just point somebody towards this catalog of 300 options and say, let us know what you think. We're going to ask some questions. I think the most important trait for an SE is just they need to be insanely curious. I want us to be asking the customer tons of questions. We should understand everything about their business we possibly can so that we can come back with intelligent solutions. And we might provide somebody with an option or two, but we're never just going to let them loose on the marketplace and say, let us know what you think. We're always going to try and understand what that customer needs to be successful. And we're going to handpick an option, or in some cases, maybe two, for them to evaluate and select. The other thing I think that's
Yeah.
important is that we're a show try buy, right? Which means we're going to get a prospect on the phone, on a Zoom. We're going to do a short interactive demo, and the goal of that is really just to get them interested enough to do a pilot. And what's so great about working with Lucas and Kestrel and some of the other partners is that they understand that as well, and they're willing to engage early in that process and make sure the customer has an idea of what's this going to feel like, what's this experience like when we're a customer and we're paying. And so that's another reason why we're so careful about who we select to partner with, and why those partnerships are so special to us is that we're able to engage as a team, give the customer an idea for what this is going to feel like after they sign the contract. And that makes everybody so much more comfortable to move forward with a business relationship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. I
And
love that.
Lucas, I mean, once they're up and running, you obviously it's not like you are out of the picture because you've been selected as a solution. What
Yeah.
are what is that ongoing experience that you're from the Kestrel Insight side providing to that end user?
Yeah, that's a good question because our approach, like geofencing in general, is a kind of shedding some light on really what's possible with geofences. And so teams are, especially on like these enterprise carriers and fleets on Samsara, like they're always going to new locations. But let's say their customer base isn't incredibly fluid, but so they're like, oh, I don't need like, I'm not always adding new customer locations. What we start to show is within Samsara and all their tools that they have, where you can start to use geofences in places you might not have been thinking about. So for example, let's bring in all the fuel stations for your territories. Now we can start to see how long are we spending at fuel stations, when are we getting there, when are we leaving. Start to dive into that. With customers, we've brought in all their maintenance facilities. So they're like, hey, I want every Jiffy Lube in these 5 states.
Mm.
Great, let's get those in there. Weather areas, things like that. Like, so we start to show okay, we've solved your like low hanging fruit or like the most prominent problem or opportunity they saw with geofencing. Now let's look at all these other ways people are using it on these platforms. And so that's kind of the ongoing stuff that we certainly see. And like Andrew said, is like once we get brought in and we make that connection with the sales engineers and the team from the start, they know we're like we can be a trusted resource. So we're always staying in touch with like, hey, what kind of pain points are going on? Like, how are things going? Where else can we look at? So that's really where we see our ongoing value, is continuing to shed light on ways geofences can be used. But the most common is just for those customers who are going to new locations, our integration with Samsara, like Andrew said, they all are turnkey, and we can just see as new locations come in. So it's just constantly processing geofences for new locations for those customers who are always going to new locations. So the ongoing support is just from a pure data perspective, and then second, as a trusted expert in geofencing, and always showing ways that it can be leveraged in new ways. So kind of two ways we really look at the ongoing value with our customers.
I think that one of the things that's really interesting about geofences, that there's so many use cases that customers just don't think about,
Oh
that
yeah.
partners like Kestrel are really useful in highlighting. One that Lucas just mentioned there, which is around maintenance. A lot of customers handle, especially large enterprise customers, they handle maintenance internally. And not everybody has a great idea about how to improve those KPIs that are maintenance related. But if you think about some of the most simple ways to do that, it's looking at, where are my vehicles sitting in a maintenance facility for more than X number of hours? If
Mm,
our internal SLA is to get this vehicle out within 48 hours, but now we can run a report that shows we have 5 vehicles that have been sitting in here for more than 7 days, that gives me something from a business perspective to go and run down. Are we waiting on parts? Should this have been a repaired an outside facility because it's outside of our expertise? How can we plan better to fix that in the future? And so all of that comes from the data. Everything comes from the reporting. And so, just even from like a maintenance perspective, geofences are insanely useful. And then you start to think about the products that Samsara is building and the features that we're building that are tied on top of geofences. Things like, do we want the camera to stop recording when it enters a geofence?
mm,
That's something we can do. But you'd probably want a
Workflows. That's amazing.
realistic
Yeah.
geofence for that. So maybe you're going to deliver to a sensitive facility. Could be oil and gas, military. There's lots of areas that don't allow video recording. And so maybe you want to programmatically kill access to the camera. Maybe the drivers are parking their vehicles at their residential locations at night, and it's part of the union contract that we're not recording video within a certain distance to their home or residence. So there's really just so much you can do just from a geofence perspective, that the possibilities are really endless, and they're just going to continue to grow.
that camera one I love. The military one, we did an exact use case around that, where every time they were going on these military bases, they would turn off the camera, and then someone was having to manually review these kind of red flags. Because if you turn off the camera in a place they're not supposed to, it notifies the team. I don't know all the nuances, but so they were having to manually review these and then say, okay, that was allowed to happen. And we were able to bring in geofences for every military base coast to coast. And it was a huge relief in terms of manual effort, that all of a sudden they cut out thousands of camera pings that they no longer have to look at. And there was a really interesting use case in San Diego. Camp Pendleton is right along Highway 5. And so if you do a big circular geofence around Camp Pendleton, you're going to go probably half a mile into the Pacific Ocean. So you're going to cover a lot of area and tons of mileage along Highway 5, where it could potentially turn off the camera, and now you're dark in a pretty busy freeway. So yeah, the polygon is so valuable there, where you can drive right along Camp Pendleton, and camera's on. The second you turn into it, you're in compliance. It's going to turn off, and you're in good shape. So yeah, I love that camera feature.
The last kind of use case I'll talk about here specific to this is, it's interesting to know where your drivers are going, but it's also sometimes far more interesting to know where they're going that you don't know about. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you inject a player like Kestrel into the mix, they're understanding all of these locations the drivers are visiting, and they're populating those as addresses. Without a partner that does that, it's up to the customer to go into our reports and say, let me click on this unknown sites area. And now I can look at, oh, I had 7 vehicles make 14 visits over the past 7 days for an average time of 45 minutes. The customer wants to know what that is. It might end up being a Lowe's, like a Love's travel stop, right? It's pretty common. It's gonna be like a fueling station or someplace. But just getting those addresses into the address book now solves a lot of that confusion for fleets that are trying to understand where are their vehicles spending time. Even looking at like idling, idling is huge. People want to know where the vehicle's idling at. One of the most recent innovations Samsara did is to make what we call weather aware idling. So, can we just not report on idling if PTO is being used? Or can we just report on idling if it's between 60 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit because we don't think you need to be burning fuel? It's nice outside. You're not trying to stay warm or stay cool. But the next piece of that is the customer wants to know, what is that envelope address? They were parked at this envelope address, but like, what is that geofence? Is this a business? Is there a name to that? So again, like all of these features we're building just become more useful and more insightful if you have geofences wrapped around them.
Love it.
Yeah, from curiosity to insights. That's a sounds like a huge theme in order to make a marketplace of partners successful. Is you got to have collaboration, people that both commit to it, some subject matter experts and SEs, as you mentioned, that are there to ask questions, to solve challenges, and to get at making their life just easier. Um, Andrew, I was wondering, who do you typically interface with when you're setting up these solutions? Is it carriers? Is it brokers? Tell me a little bit about that.
You talking about on the customer side, like what stakeholders are we
Yeah, the
typically
customer side.
working with? Yeah,
Yeah.
wow, that it varies. Samsara serves so many industries and so many use cases. It's almost the best. One of my new SEs, I asked them how they were doing when they joined Samsara about a month in. And they told me that before every meeting, it's like spinning two big like game show wheels. One is the industry and the other one is the use case. And they like are they vary quite a bit. So it's super dynamic. And you might join one meeting and you're talking to a maintenance manager. The next meeting you could be talking to the C-suite, a safety director. It is so broad, the application for Samsara, and we serve 10 plus industries and all kinds of personas in each industry. So it varies so much. It's actually difficult to answer that question. In terms of a proof of concept or a pilot scenario, we're typically working with boots on the ground. A maintenance manager wants to understand how long his vehicles are sitting in the maintenance bay. The safety director wants to know, how effective is this AI camera at curbing the safety behaviors that I put policies in place for? The CTO, the CEO, they want to understand broader trends. They want to know, how is this going to impact the business in 3 to 5 years? How fast are we going to achieve the ROI? And so, in any given engagement, we're talking to probably 5 plus different personas at all different levels and areas of the organization.
Yeah, I like the game show thing. I'm going to use that because,
Yeah,
and I think that's
that's pretty
why,
good.
yeah, I think that's why a lot of our demos, our co-demos or co-selling opportunities go so well, is because we have the exact same application of like, or case of like, who are we talking to? Because geofences are kind of a funky little data niche. They're so broadly used, but not everyone is aware of all the different areas of the business they touch. So whoever's got that pain point at that time is who's like, I need to talk to Kestrel. And so it could be a CEO who's like, I'm struggling to see this, that, or the other. It could be someone totally boots on the ground who's like, hey, these geofences are feeding this report that I need or this workflow. Or hey, I'm drawing all these. And like, you never know who that touches. And so we see the breadth of personas as well. It's borderline comical. So
Well, for many different personas makes the partnership even more valuable. We're kind of coming into some final thoughts here. We've had a really good discussion, but of everything we talked about, Lucas, what do you think the overarching theme is to make these kinds of partnerships work for the end customer?
oh man, I think the section we touched on of like collaborative selling, the co-selling piece of like, hey, we are two different teams. We both are subject matter experts in different things, but they have this great Venn diagram. So that's why it makes sense to work together. That connection and going at it though as a solitary team, I think is awesome. So I think it's not only the collaboration again from just having open APIs. It's the second piece of like the culture and the mindset of how do we as a company want to work with our partners and work with our marketplace. Plenty of people can just set up a marketplace and say, yeah, we got a marketplace, we got all these integrations. Like that's an easy box to check. But then leveraging that marketplace and really believing in the value that marketplace partners bring to the solution, I think is very obvious and such a benefit of working with Samsara. So I think just that collaboration piece and how you as a business consider collaboration, whether it's with other technology vendors, whether it's with outside sales or marketing, I don't know what it is, but just looking at how you approach collaboration and are you doing it to check a box or are you doing it to really bring value to someone or something? It's just a great question to ask when you go into it. And so, yeah, that's my biggest piece with kind of how we work with Samsara and why it's been successful.
What would you say, Andrew?
I think it's spot on. I would echo a lot of that. I feel like we're customer obsessed, right? We want to partner with people who are customer obsessed. I think when you enter into a conversation curious and you're looking for problems, you don't need to sell. We're not there to like pitch products. We're there to solve problems. And if you can solve a customer's problem, they're just going to ask you what products they need to make that happen.
Mm.
And so that's where Lucas and Kestrel are very like-minded. And if we engage with a customer and there's not a fit there, we're not going to push that on them. But if we get in there and we decide that there's some significant benefits to us partnering together and what we can do for you from a technology perspective, then that's exactly why we're there in that conversation, and that's what we're going to do. So I think just in general, the way that we focus on customer success and customer impact is why we've been so successful in a co-selling motion. It's the reason why we have the meetings between the meetings, right? We don't just show up and Lucas and I are on the call for the first time with the customer at the same time. It's just not how we operate. So we're spending so much more time with each other before and in between those meetings with the customer that the customer feels, like they're being taken care of.
Yeah. There's nothing worse than showing to a meeting and you're like, and the customer can obviously tell, wait, we're just picking up where we left off. Nothing happened in between. Like that was a week ago, and you're like, nothing's happened. So that's always the worst. And so, I echo that as well.
I think
Well,
that's a really good point. Like, you never want to have the customer re-index things they already told you. There's few
Yeah.
things more frustrating than that for a customer. And so if a customer has expressed, for instance, that they're going to have trouble at scale managing geofences, or wow, this reporting looks great, but there's no way we're going to be able to create these geofences. In a perfect world, yeah, this sounds great on paper. We can't rationalize this in a production sense. Um, then I'm going to brief Lucas. I'm going to call Lucas after that meeting. I'm going to explain what the needs are, and we're going to show up with a solution. We're not going to show up on the next meeting and say, "Hey, can you fill Lucas in on what we were talking
Yeah.
about before?" So it's a really important dynamic of the relationship.
Yeah.
very cool. Well, guys, I think had a really great discussion about successful marketplaces and logistics technology, but also just a good reminder to think about your customers' problems and how you're solving them and be there for them so they feel taken care of. Well, thanks for joining us today, Andrew and Lucas, as always. Andrew, where can people find more about Samsara?
The best place to find us is samsara.com. There's going to be an intake form there, tons of ways to get a hold of us. So if you're interested in learning more, that's the best place to go. And if you want to learn more about Kestrel Insights, you can always find them directly from our expert marketplace, as well as their site as well, I'm sure.
Perfect. And that website is what, Lucas?
Website's kestrelinsights.com. We're super active on LinkedIn, but yeah, especially anyone on Samsara, the marketplace is great, and connect with us there and get you up and running.
Awesome. Well, thanks, fellas, for a good time and a good discussion today. And thanks for those listeners out here on Straight to the Points, episode 3, where you can check us out on LinkedIn and obviously on the Kestrel Insights website. So if you check that out, you'll see a couple more episodes. But we'll have another live discussion next time. And just thanks to everybody for tuning in. Have a good one.